Let's welcome our EWG head, DepEd Assistant Secretary for Field Operations, ASEC Francis Cesar Boots. Good afternoon po, ASEC.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you very much. Good afternoon to everyone. And thank you for accommodating me at this early because I am off for a travel in a little while. So thank you for the adjustment of the time to accommodate the DepEd this particular for this particular component. So this is the sustainable education. Um, May I ask the Secretariat to please flash the presentation on screen?
Okay, farewell po, ASEC.
So while waiting for the presentation to be flashed on screen, would just like to mention that for the sustainable education component of the SGLG, we have uh, prepared actually a set of indicators to be fulfilled by the local government units. It's not really a that different from the previous criteria that were set by the cluster, but it is more of an enhancement of the existing criteria and possible expansion of the evaluation criteria in the coming years. So here are our indicators for the sustainable education. Next slide, please. So again, the sustainable education is the focus on implementing educational reforms and programs to support the vision of quality education for all in the learning in the local government units. So we all know that the local government units have their own local school boards that work with the Department of Education in the implementation of programs of the department. So for this particular component, the overall processing for the provinces, cities, and municipalities, they must all meet indicators numbers 3 and 4 plus 2 indicators choosing from 1, 2, and 5 to fully satisfy the sustainable education area. So the processing here is 4 out of 5, but indicators 3 and 4 are non-negotiable indicators. So moving on, for indicator number 1, it is the functional local school board. This is one of the indicators where you are going to choose 2. So for indicator number 1, this is the functional local school board. This indicator looks into the LGU's compliance with the organization of the local school board as provided for in section 98 of the local government code. It is also an indicator that is consistent with section 100 of the LGC, which provides that LSB shall meet at least once a month as often as may be necessary. So the sources of data for this particular indicator would include the executive order or similar issuance creating the local school board. The creation of the local school board, usually this board is reconstituted depending on the assigned schools division superintendent, or in most cases the assigned public schools district supervisors for the municipalities. So just to inform you that recently we had a reshuffling of schools division superintendents, so necessarily the provincial school boards should be reconstituted to include the new schools division superintendent as a co-chair of the provincial school board. Another data source would be the minutes of the meeting of the local school board in school year or calendar year 2022 and certified form 2D accomplished by the SDS or the district supervisor to certify if monthly meetings are indeed conducted. So the minimum requirement for the SGLG would be the provinces, cities, and municipalities must have an organized local school board that complies with the mandatory membership provisions under Section 98 of the Local Government Code. So there are mandatory membership to this board, although that will not disallow you from putting additional members as the board deemed necessary. And the number two minimum requirement would be to have at least once a month meeting of the local school board. It may also be included. You may also include here the occurrence or the frequency of special or emergency meetings of the local school board. For indicator number two, this is the conduct of collaborative programs, activities, and projects with external partners. So education partners must be informed and engaged on different programs for education. So in the Department of Education, we are very much into partnership and linkages, and therefore we are also expecting the local government to be partnering with other agencies or with other NGOs in the accomplishment of their goals of their programs, activities, and projects in the locality. Not sometimes, more often, our programs that are up for partnership are the Brigada Escuela, Brigada Pagbasa. We also have the Gulayan sa Paaralan. We have Barkada Contra Droga, and so on. So we have several programs in the department that are needing partnerships to fill in the gaps or resource gaps of the Department of Education, including that of the local school board. In case the POPs pertains to Brigada Escuela, for example, the LGUs will be asked to identify the general nature of activities initiated by the local government and its partners. So the data source for this would be the accomplishment report signed by the local government unit and or the external partner, including partnership agreements in the form of memorandum of agreement or memorandum of understanding with the partners. Minimum SGLG requirement would be the provinces, cities, and municipalities must have at least two POPs conducted in collaboration with two different external partners in calendar year 2022. Indicator number three. This is one of the non-negotiable indicators. Fund utilization rate and actual completion or accomplishment of the POPs funded by the CY 2022 SEF budget. So a description of this would be attainment of the plans and programs targeted in the local school board plan or SAF budget for calendar year 2022 and its compliance with various issuances on SEF. The data source here would be utilization of our PPA completion data per certified form 2D, and this is a certification from a DepEd representative. We can also have the CY 2022 accomplishment report of the local school board plan for the implementation or utilization of the SEF budget. And very important, we have the CY 2022 financial report of the LSB plan and the SAF budget utilization and other relevant reports from concerned government agencies. The minimum requirement for the SGLG would be achieve at least 85% completion rate on either PAPs and utilization of the fund intended for the 2022 SAF budget as of December 31, 2022. I repeat, this indicator is non-negotiable. For the fourth indicator, which is also the non-negotiable indicator, this is LGU initiated planned reforms aligned with the identified local priority education reform areas. So this indicator encourages the alignment of the LGU PAPs for education with that of the local priority education reform areas determined by the DepEd through its DEDP, or for the school level, the school improvement plan and annual improvement plans. So please be informed that the schools division offices or the SDOs have developed their division education development plan for the next 6 years, where the 3-year SIP of the schools are also aligned. So for data source, we have certificate form CMP 2D certification from DepEd representative, and the DepEd division or district supervisors shall identify LGU POPs present in the approved investment program SAF budget form that are aligned with the DEDP SIP and AIP. The LGUs to submit their LDIP and AIP to their DepEd District Division Office or DepEd District Office or Division Office for the issuance of Certified Form 2D, and of course the approved SEF budget, that's form number 1. So for the minimum requirement of the SGLG, provinces, cities, and municipalities must have at least two POPs for 2023 indicated in the LGU, LDIP, AIP, or SEF budget or LSB plan that are aligned with the local priority education reform areas of DepEd as provided under the DEDP, SIP, and AIP. It would also help if your identified or aligned priority areas would be culled from the DEDP that are also aligned with the BEDP or the Basic Education Development Plan of the entire Department of Education for the next few years. For indicator number 5, this is the support to programs and projects that promote inclusive education in calendar year 2022. When we speak of inclusive education, we are referring to programs of the department that are targeting gifted and talented learners, learners with disabilities. We have the madrasa and alive programs for the Muslim schools. We have the Indigenous Peoples Education Program or the IPED. We also have the special education, alternative learning system, parent effectiveness service programs, family or community livelihood project, or similar programs that support school-age children's education, and the establishment, of course, and maintenance of child development centers. The data source of which would come from the accomplishment report from the LGU regarding these inclusive education programs, the DepEd reports on program implementation and review, and other data from concerned DepEd central, regional, and division offices whenever they are applicable. And third, other relevant reports from concerned government agencies like the NCCDA, NCIP, the SWD, DPWH that are relevant to the indicator number 5. Minimum requirement: the provinces, cities, and municipalities must have at least two PPAs in calendar year 2022 that promote inclusive education. Next slide, we are going to show you the indicators that are profiling, although they are not going to be reported this year, but for this year, these are for profiling so that by next year, they shall be included as regular indicators for the education reforms area. So we have indicators for profiling. One is the first, no, this is the only indicator I think for profiling, but this is a very relevant and essential indicator because it is a measure of the impact of all the items one or indicators 1 to 5, and the impact would be for this particular indicator, which is the improvement in pupils' performance. Because ultimately, the goal of the local school board together with the Department of Education is for improvement of pupils' performance or improvement of learning outcomes. So the data source of this would be data from DepEd District Division Office, Certified Form 2D, 2 or 2D3 from DepEd representatives. And for municipalities and cities with no DepEd city SDOs and have multiple DepEd district offices, LPDO shall compute the city municipal average based on the certified forms. In the DepEd, usually the source of this data is the Enhanced Basic Education Information System, which is a system being used by the department to record official um, official numbers or statistics relative to the indicators that are or relative to the key performance indicators that will be required in this particular indicator. So if you look at the last column, that is the SGLG minimum requirement, provinces, cities, municipalities Data on the following in school year 2021-2022 must be higher than school year 2020-2021. So this is a comparative number or statistics based on the two school years of the locality. Number one is participation rate or the net enrollment rate. We are referring here to participation rate would refer to the total number of enrolled school age children over the total school age children in the municipality. So that would be the participation rate. Number two, cohort survival rate would refer to enrollees in grade one or kinder that are able to complete the complete 6-year cycle or 7-year cycle of the elementary, and enrollees in grade 7 that are able to complete the up to grade 12. So that is the cohort survival rate. And completion rate, of course, is those who are able to graduate the whole elementary from kinder to grade 6 they graduate, and from grade 7 to grade 12 they are graduates. So that is the completion rate. The net intake rate here would refer to the entry age, which is kindergarten, so that all 5-year-old children in the locality must be in the school or officially enrolled in the school. For provinces, cities, and municipalities, data on the following must be lower than the 2020-2021. So if you look at the first set of indicators, there are the positive indicators, meaning we are looking at higher numbers there. And for the second set of indicators, we are looking at decreases in the numbers of the following key performance indicators. The presence of out of school youth or OSY. The out of school youth refers to the number of school age children who are not enrolled in school. So they are considered as out of school. So for this to become positive, there has to be a decreasing number from year to year. And then number two, incidents of bullying. These are in compliance with the Anti-Bullying Acts and the Child Protection Policy of the DepEd, that we should be aiming at lowering the number or ultimately eliminating the number or the incidence of bullying in our schools. And finally, the dropout rate or the school leaver rate, that for any reason, for whatever reason, the school should be able to keep all the learners, all enrolled learners must be kept in the schools. So we are looking at decrease in the statistics for these three indicators. I think that is the last one. We only have, I repeat, 5 indicators. Two are non-negotiable, and the other two will be chosen from 1, 2, and 5 indicators, so that you are able to comply with 4 out of 5 indicators. That would be all for the education area. Thank you so much for clarifications. We will be happy to address them.
Thank you so much po, ASEC Brinas from Department of Education for discussing the performance indicators for the sustainable education governance area of the CY 2023 Seal of Good Local Governance. But meantime, sir, we request you po, ASEC, na magstay muna po for a while lang po
Yeah, sure.
to
No problem.
answer questions for issues. If meron man po gustong i-raise yung ating mga participants from our regional and field offices. Also ASEC, meron din po tayong mga participants na regional directors, assistant regional directors of the DILG from different offices po. Start na po tayo. First po, for the first indicator po, the LSB functionality, clarify lang po namin, ASEC, na tama po ba? that special and emergency meetings can also be considered to meet the meeting requirements?
Yeah, yes, yes. Although the minimum is monthly, but I know that there are many localities that conduct special meetings or emergency meetings to address some urgent concerns for the Department of Education. That would be most welcome as well.
Thank you so much po, Asek, for the clarification. Next po, with regards to indicator 5.2, at least two PPA is conducted in collaboration with two different external partners in CY 2022. Meron po tayong question from DILG Region 12. Conduct of collaborative PAPs with external partners. Acceptable na po ba if may accomplishment report signed by LGU or external partner kahit na hindi na po sila nakipag-formalize ng partnership with those external partners through MOA or MOGO?
I believe na yung partnerships natin are always sealed by some document like MOA or MOU. So I think it is very important that you have a signed MOU as a proof of partnership or linkage with another agency or an NGO for that matter.
Thank you po, Asek, for that clarification. Next po, for indicator 5.4, meron pong question from our regional offices. CY 2023 PAPs po ba talaga instead of CY 2022 ang tinitignan? Sige pa, Asek.
Again, wait, that's probably 2022 because our evaluation this year is based on 2022. So, ano ba yung indicator 5.4? Let me just check my notes. LG initiated plan reforms aligned. Oh, no. This is we know that the plans for 2023 are crafted in 2022. So while we are looking at the accomplishments of 2022, we will also be looking at the accomplishments for 2022. We shall also be looking at the plans for 2023 because they are crafted within the calendar year. So that is 2023 alignment of programs with the LGU directions as well as that of the DEDP and SIP.
Thank you po, Asek. And just to add lang po, correct po ba na clarification lang po na these are initiated plans for CY 2023. Meanwhile, yung pong CY 2022 accomplishments ay na-cover naman po sa other indicators under the area.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you so much po, Asek.
Because we would want to make sure that the plans for 2023 are done in the last quarter at least of 2022 so that we know that upon approval of the budget, upon declaration of the budget for the SEF, we already know by January of the following year how to utilize it.
Okay po. Thank you so much po, Asek, for these clarifications. Any more questions for clarifications with regards with the indicators for the programs for sustainable education from our regional and field offices? Meron po ba tayong
I think
na concern?
there are questions in the chat. Can you see that?
Yes po, Asek. Actually po, yung mga nire-raise po namin questions na kinoconsolidate po ng Secretariat ay kinukuha lang din po natin sa mga chat po ng ating participants from the Zoom chat box po.
Okay. Sige. Thank you. Although if there are going to be questions that will not be addressed now, you can always forward the queries to the office and then we will do the response so that you can also provide them with the DILG or the local government units.
Yes po, Asek, all of these concerns po and clarifications from our regional and field offices will be consolidated po by the Secretariat and we will provide you if meron pong mga need na i-discuss or i-clarify and para po ma-clarify din po namin sa end nila.
Yeah, I think there. I read one question here that would also involve our field offices. It says, May we know po if there are plans to cascade the information to our officials in DepEd at the city and municipal levels so that they will also know what to prepare, what documents to prepare for the assessment. Yes, definitely, especially that I am in the operations strand of the department, we will be discussing these indicators also with our counterparts in the field so that they will not be surprised if the local government unit will ask for data coming from them. So yes, we will do that. Thank you so much.
Thank you po for the clarification, ASEC. ASEC, meron po pong humabol regarding po dun sa LSP meetings. Meron po pong question from DILG Region 2. ASEC, wala na raw po bang consideration for less than 12 monthly meetings for this year considering the election year po last year, so nabago po ang mga members ng LSP mid-year?
Depende na yan dun sa rubrics na i-prepare ng committee, no? Kung magkakaroon man ng consideration for less than 12 for valid reasons, like I read there because of the election and the transition, so probably that will be considered also. We will look into that. Thank you so much.
Thank you po, ASEC. And also, ASEC, regarding po ito dun sa 85% completion rate, meron pong concern from Region 5. For example, ASEC, that the LGU have 10 PPAs and 9 PPAs were completed, but the fund utilized for the completion of the said PPA were only 20% of the total budget for the SEF. Considered pass pa rin po ba ito?
Okay, let me just check on the minimum requirement of the SGLG, no? That's indicator number
5.3 po, ASEC.
5.3. Provinces, cities must achieve at least 85% completion rate on either PPA's rate and utilization rate of the fund intended for the 2022 SEF. So we are looking here at the totality of the SEF budget, no, not the budget for individual PAPs, but we are looking here at the utilization rate of the entire SEF budget.
Thank you, ASEC. For a while lang po.
Kasi ang utilization rate naman, kung obligated naman siya, that is considered as utilized already.
Any clarification po regarding this? Okay. Noted po, ASEC. Thank you so much po. Also, same indicator po, question from DALG-NCR. Are we following a specific template for accomplishment reports for this indicator?
I don't think we have a template for accomplishment report. Walang nire-require na template, but the standard accomplishment formats that you have may suffice, so long as all the significant information are contained in that report.
Thank you so much po, ASEC Bringas. Double check lang po namin yung ating chat box. Okay, nagre-raise po ng hand ang DILG Pasig. Meron pong i-raise ang ating focal from DILG Pasig. Yes, ma'am. You are
Hello po.
recognized.
Opo, good afternoon po, ASEC. Opo, yung concern po namin dun po sa part ng profiling. Yung first item po kasi dun ay participation rate over net enrollment rate. So, paano kaya yung...
That is not, that is slash. That's not a ratio, okay? So that's participation rate or the net enrollment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Opo, ang concern lang po kasi kung paano po yung treatment, sir, kung halimbawa po, dito po nakasensus yung bata or nakatira po sa Pasig, for example, pero nag-aaral po sa kabilang LGU. Kunyari po sa Mandaluyong or yung mga nearby.
Kasi doon sa data na manggagaling sa EBIS, naka-factor in na talaga yung mga yan. So whatever data you get from the EBIS, naka-factor in na yung mga instances na ganyan. Kaya merong certain control in the system that would correct such para ma-factor in yung mga instances na ganyan. So
Ah,
yeah. Oo, sa planning office kasi yan manggagaling ng Department of Education SDO ninyo. So they will be able to explain that fully to you na naka-factor in talaga yung mga yan. Okay?
okay. So yung data po pala sa national data? Or
Yeah, it's a national
po rin,
ang data source
so
natin
yung ano,
actually is the ABIS.
ABIS.
Yeah.
Opo. Thank you po, Asek.
Welcome.
Thank you po, ma'am, from DALG Pasig. Any more questions po or clarifications? Yes po, Miss Joy, na-raise na po natin si ASEC regarding sa considerations sa mga meetings and may naiwan pa po ba tayo? Let me check lang po. From DILG Region 10, Misamis Oriental, actual disbursement po ba tayo sa fund? Actual disbursement po tayo sa fund utilization. The minimum requirement is completion rate on either PAPS and utilization rate or either of the two.
That is indicator number
3 po, ASEC, 5.3.
Yeah, nakalagay dyan, must achieve at least 85% completion rate on either PAPS or utilization rate. 85% completion rate on either PAPS. Kasi ang nakalagay dito ang inyong either PAPS and utilization rate of the fund intended for 2020. So we're looking here at 80% completion rate of the PAPS or 85% utilization rate of the fund intended for 2022. So hindi siya yung disbursement rate. So as I've said earlier, kapag utilization rate, we're looking at the obligation. Kung na-obligate siya, it is considered utilized. Kapag nabayaran na siya, yun yung disbursement rate. So kahit hindi bayad, kung na-utilize, ay kung na-obligate siya, that is considered as utilized already.
Thank you po, ASEC, for the clarification. Any more clarifications for regarding other indicators under the SE maintenance area? Or any other additional comments po or clarifications from the Secretariat? From DILG Makati po. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Sir Kim. Asek, question lang on the dropout rate, no? Saan ang data source natin ito? Thank you.
All the key performance indicators, ang official numbers natin ay nanggagaling sa EBEIS that is nationally generated.
Thank you. So, Asek sa inyo po, sa system ng
Yeah,
DepEd.
so sa DepEd manggagaling yan specifically from the planning unit.
With regards that sa mga enrollment rate, dropout rate, for example, yung kagaya po ng concern ni Mama Ann sa Pasig, no? Dudugtungan lang, if yung sa, for example, sa dropout rate, no? Sa LGU ng Makati, pero ang nakatira naman yung student sa ibang city, pag nag-drop out ba siya sa Makati, drop out, is that a negative data for the Makati or kung saan siya nakatira?
Pag dropout rate kasi we are referring to the enrolled learners in the school of the locality regardless of where he is residing. So kung naka-enroll siya doon officially at nag-drop siya, that is considered as negative. Okay?
Yeah,
kahit pa taga-Pasig siya, kunyari, naka-enroll siya in a school in Makati, officially na-cover na siya doon sa enrollment rate ng Makati. Therefore, kapag nag-drop siya, it will be against Makati. Kasi doon siya nag-drop.
Yes po. Na-discuss ko po ito sa mga meetings with DepEd representative dito na during school board meeting and everything. May concern lang kasi dun sa regarding po dyan asset, no? May scenarios kasi na nag-enroll sa isang LGU. Like for example, yung example natin nakatira sa Pasig, nag-enroll sa Makati. And then, after niya makuha yung social services ng inano ng isang LGU, nagda-drop out siya, tapos lumilipat siya ibang LGU. So tinanong namin ko yan sa ating DepEd kung napafollow ba nila yan, kung how will they treat that one na nagda-drop sa isang LGU tapos nagta-transfer to another LGU. So paano na focus ng system and then kawawa naman yung mga LGUs tuwa niyo po yung kumukuha lang ng ganyan.
For yung ating EBIS, meron yan cut off. Meron yan cut off for the official enrollment. At kung nag-enroll siya, for example, sa start of the school year, nag-enroll siya ng August, at nung nakuha niya yung mga bags, uniform, shoes, and so on, at umalis na siya, hindi pa siguro yan covered nung period ng cut-off ng official enrollment. Usually, ang cut-off natin ng official enrollment is at least a month after the start of classes. Saka lang nare-register yung official enrollment of the school. Ganon yung ating treatment sa cut-off natin sa ating enrollment based on the EBIS. Hindi siya official at the start of the school year, but there is a certain period like at least a month before maging official yung enrollment, because we understand that there are going to be movements from one school to another or from one locality to another within the first month of the opening of classes.
So pag nag-transfer siya asset or hindi na siya pumasok within the cut-off, so hindi pa siya officially enrolled, so wala pa siya sa data, so hindi pa rin siya officially dropped.
Yes, exactly.
How about yung transferred, nag-transfer siya in the middle of the school, hindi siya dropped, right?
No.
Officially transferred siya.
Nag-transfer siya to another school, then he is not officially dropped, and that is also captured by our system na kapag nag-transfer siya, i-out siya sa isang school at mai-in naman siya dun sa nilipatan niyang school. So, transfer out, transfer in. Kasi hindi siya pwedeng itag as transfer out hanggat hindi nire-request ng school na i-accept niya, so matatag siya dun sa kabila as transfer in. If umalis yung bata, hindi niyo malocate yung bata pero wala kayong request for tagging of transfer out, then that will be considered as dropped.
Thank you, Asek. That's a very crystal clear po.
Thank
you.
Thank you so much po, our focal from DILG Makati for raising these concerns. Balik lang po tayo sa chat box saglit. Meron pa po ata mga nire-raise na question. From DILG 13, question from Ms. Florian regarding indicator 3. Ito po yung na-raise na rin kanina regarding sa fund utilization rate and actual completion. Ms. Florian, revise na update na po natin yung technical notes, or po ito, not and. So tulad po nung sinabi ni Ase kanina na guidance, either of the two. So or po ito. Na-update na po natin ang ating technical references, reflecting po yung changes po natin dito. And also po, ASEC meron pa rin po mga clarification. I think this clarification po ay both para po sa inyo sa DepEd at sa amin din po here as the Secretariat. Meron po silang kinaklarify. Pakiclarify po from Region 4A po ito, nung sa utilization, kasi po sa ating technical notes lagi ay ang utilized po ay disbursed, even po sa ibang performance area.
Okay. Okay, let me just answer that. We are using here the definition as per DBM. Okay? Kasi sa DBM kasi pag sinabing budget utilization rate, up to obligation.
Okay po, thank you po ASEC for this clarification. We will take note po of this. For a while lang po, for a while.
Ah, hello po, this is Melanie po. Hello po, ASEC.
Oh yes.
Regarding po, para may closure na yung mga issue on utilization, no, magbibigay kami ng overall guidance on this. Para lang baka similar yung treatment niya rin sa ibang areas or whatsoever. So, i-close na po natin yung discussion on utilization kasi po ulit-ulit na natin kinukulit si Yusek, ay ASEC, ilang beses na rin niya pong sinagot kanina. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you po. Any more clarification? Kanina parang nakita ko rin po nag-raise ng hand ang R5. Meron po ba kayong other concerns na hindi pa po natin na-discuss kanina?
Team.
Hello po.
Good afternoon, Sir Team. This is Lei po from Region 5.
Yes, ma'am.
Sir, clarification lang po doon sa 5.3. Yung na-raise po namin na question kanina. For example po, yung LGU, out of 10 identified PPAs, 9 po yung na-complete nila. Pero 20% po ng fund ang na-utilize po. 20% ng total fund ang na-utilize para ma-complete po yung 9 na PPAs. Considered pass po ba yun?
9 out of 10.
9 out of 10 po. Pero 20% po ng total fund ang na-disperse to complete the 9 PPAs. Considered pass po ba yan?
If titignan niyo po, it's 9 divided by 10 po. Ilang percent po ba yun, ma'am? That would be 90%. What we are
Yes,
requiring lang is just 85%. So, pasado po siya. This is either completion rate or utilization rate po siya. Yung ating minimum requirement.
Okay po, ma'am. Thank you so much po, ma'am, for the response po.
Thank you so much po. Any other questions po from DILG Region 10?
Yes, good afternoon. For a while. Okay, Asek, good afternoon. So, I would just like to be clarified on these two indicators, 5.2 and, 5.3 and 5.4. Kasi sa 5.3, yung at least 85% na completion rate on either PPAs or utilization rate of the fund intended for CY 2022 SEF budget. So at least 85% of all those of the PPAs, no, or kung ano yung naka-budget for the SEF. Now, di ba merong existing guidelines na now let's move on to 5.4 na dapat yung kung ano yung nasa kung paano nila gagamitin yung SEF fund, it should be reflected in the LDIP and AIP. That will serve as the basis for the annual budget. So, yung ano ba, yung SEF ba, dapat ba siya ipasok doon sa annual budget? Kasi if it's required na ipasok siya sa LDIP, AIP, so nandun din siya sa budget. Pero bakit dalawa lang ang yung indicator? Bakit at least 2 lang? Bakit hindi yung buong expenditure items na naka-charge doon sa SEF ang dapat ipasok doon sa annual investment program?
Ang minimum requirement by the SGLG is minimum of two, at least two POPs. So kung naglagay ka ng more than two, then that would be an edge for the local government.
Okay, so yung 85% ba, ASEC, is, that would apply to the two items lang? Yung 85% na completion rate or ano? Or does it refer to the entire SEF budget?
Yeah, according to the description of the indicator, it says there, actual completion or accomplishment of the POPs funded by the CY 2020 to 2022. So if you indicated 5, then you should get accomplishment of 85% of the 5.
The
Yes.
five.
Oo. So kung dalawa lang yung nilagay mo, then you will have to accomplish the two because if you only accomplish one, that's only 50%.
So yun yung okay.
Yes.
Sige. ASEC, so yun lang yung magiging basis ngayon. Kung ilan lang ang nilagay, yun
Yes.
i-apply ang 85%.
Yes.
Okay, sige. Thank you, Asaf. But I'm just curious, bakit hindi lahat? Eh kung yung buong SEF dapat gagamitin for the education-related program, bakit hindi natin i-require na yung buong SEF na fund, ipasok lahat sa annual investment program? Kasi doon mo siya dapat parang, di ba, the target it should be utilized 100% for that period or even kung at least meron mang extension but yung buong ano talaga, yung buong plan talaga for the utilization of that one should be integrated in the annual investment program.
Yeah, we will consider that. Thank you so much, and we will confer. We will have to discuss that with the whole SGLG committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Asek.
Thank you po, Ms. Hazel from R10, and thank you po for the response, Asek Bringas. I think meron po pong last question for this governance area from Region 12. On improvement in pupils' performance indicators po, may we ask if covered po both pupils in public and private schools?
Yes, of course. We would not want to leave out our private schools. Yes, that would be affirmative.
Thank you po. Thank you po, Asek Bringas, for that clarification. And I think yun na po ang end. Meron pa po bang manghabol na clarification? Wala na po, ano? Check na lang po natin yung chat box. Asek, if meron pa po mga pumasok sa atin, sa secretariat ng mga questions regarding po sa governance area, we will transmit via these concerns po to your office for guidance and clarifications po.
Yeah, sure. Yes.
Thank you so much po again, Asek.
And if ever there are misprints in the presentations, then we will double check again so we can issue clarification from our end.
Okay po. Ay, Asek, last na po ito. Minitatanong po from Batanes. Meron din daw po ba or covered din ng EDIS yung mga private schools?
Yes, they are registered. Our private schools are also encoding in the LIS or the Learner Information System, so they are covered.
Thank you so much po, Asek, for that clarification. And again po, thank you so much po to our DepEd colleagues headed by our TWG Head Assistant Secretary for Field Operations, Asek Francis Cesar Bringas, for this presentation and for answering the concerns and queries of our focal persons from different regional offices. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you, everyone. Good afternoon.
For a while lang. Ayan, before we proceed po to the third governance area, ito po yung Tourism Heritage Development, Culture and the Arts. Actually po kasama na natin ngayon yung ating representatives from our DWG, from the Department of Tourism. Pero para lang po medyo ma-refresh po tayo ulit at makahinga ng konti, meron lang po kaming short icebreaker before we proceed to the discussion of these indicators. So, ibigay ko po ang floor kay for a while lang po. Short icebreaker lang po para lang po ma-refresh tayo bago tayo mag-proceed sa mga next indicators natin or governance areas. Meantime, while waiting for our game master, we would like again to remind everyone to kindly accomplish po our attendance form, our test. We will resend from time to time po the link sa ating chat box. Also, for the link for technical references and other notes for this orientation, forms, for the DLG's consumption, meron po tayong provide na link sa ating pong chat box para po ma-access ito ng lahat. Maraming salamat po. Ready na po ba? Okay, sige po.
Hello po, nadidinig po ba? Okay. So, hello, good afternoon po. Buhay pa po ba ang lahat? Ano pa po tayo? Meron pa po tayong last two governance area after po nitong icebreaker. Pero para po ma-refresh tayo dun sa mga napag-usapan earlier kasi medyo mabibigat din po yung mga areas na yun at may mas mabibigat pang datating. So mag-ano po muna tayo, mag-icebreaker po muna tayo. So ang tawag po dito ay guess the word. So ito po ay SGLG edition. Yeah. So ang mechanics po natin dito, meron po kami ipa-flash na mga icons na makakita nyo sa inyong mga screen at mahuhulaan nyo po yung mga SDLG related word that they are trying to convey. Note po, lahat po ng mga words na ipapahula natin ay SDLG related. Either na-encounter po natin ito sa tech notes, sa implementation ng SDLG, basta po lahat po na may na-encounter natin na may kinalaman sa SDLG. And majority po ng mga words dito ay English pero meron lang po I think isa na in Filipino. Tapos para po sa mga participants natin, ikiin niyo po yung answer sa ating Zoom chat box after po nung ito pong signal na line. So makikisuyo na lang po sa mga kasama natin sa secretariat na ilagay po nila yung line para mag-signify po na doon po yung start ng pagta-type ng sagot ng mga participants. Okay, sige. Si kasamang Rams na lang po ang mag-encode. And then, ang tip po pala dito, huwag nyo pong i-try na literally i-interpret yung exact translation ng mga icon. Pwede nyo pong gawin, parang tignan nyo po siya ng kabuuan or maghanap po kayo ng isang picture na madali nyo ma-identify ano yung word na ibig nang sabihin para makuha nyo po yung buo. Para may mga ganong tip lang po tayo dito. Pero pwede po tayo mag-sample. Sample round. So ito po, ano po ang word na ibig sabihin nito? Okay, meron na po tayong linya. Refresh, mali po. So, faulty. Checklist, feedbacking. Hello, naku, mukhang mahirap yata. Yung nakahula ko. Meron na nakahula? Sino na? Sino po ang nakahula?
Ito si Arthur Ronald.
Ay, parang may kulang. May kulang sa sagot niya. R5. So, ang tamang sagot po dito ay change request form. So, di ba ang nakalagay po doon, change? Kasi yung image na change. Tapos yung request, friend request. Tapos yung form, ayun na po. So, parang ganun po siya. Kailangan po maging creative lang tayo sa pag-iisip. So, ano po ba? Okay po ba? Sige, okay. Example lang yun ha. Proceed tayo sa actual. Pero ito po pala ay wala pong premyo ito for the record. Or meron po ba, Ma'am Melay? Sige, sige. Okay, tuloy na tayo. Ano lang po tayo?
Yes,
For
may
fun.
premyo.
Ay, oh my God, si Ma'am Des meron daw.
Ma'am, kasali na kami.
Wahaha. Go na, how much? Gika.
Per item. Ano po tayo, ma'am? Meron po tayong 20 items dito. Ano na lang, 10? 10 na lang para makapag-proceed na tayo sa next.
Okay, sige.
Okay, sige. Okay, ready na po lahat? Pa-thumbs up na lang po kung ready na. Okay, ready na si Kim. Okay, number 1. Yung linya ba? Okay, meron na pong linya. So, pwede na po kayo mag-type ng mga sagot nyo. Wala po. Ay, may nakakuha na ng tamang sagot. Ang tamang sagot ay incident command system. So, incident, dahil may nagbanggaan, yung command, ayun o, yung taga-utos na nagko-command. Tapos yung system, ay, ang sabi po ng secretariat, wrong spelling is wrong. Bawal daw din po ang acronym. Ang higpit po ng secretariat today. So, ang nakakuha ng tamang sagot ay si from DLG NCR, Adrian Lopez. Okay, congrats. Ipapadala lang po namin courtesy of Ma'am Debs. Okay, next po. Okay, pwede na po mag-type. May nakakuha na? Okay, agad-agad. Ang tamang sagot ay full disclosure policy. Ay! Mali spelling ba? Tama naman. Tama naman. So, full disclosure policy, kaya po siya full kasi full na yung kanyang battery. So, puno na siya. Disclosure, ayun. Tinika mo gamit ang megaphone at saka ang policy, ayan na. Yung naretest mo na siya. So, ang nakakuha ng tamang sagot ay si from DLG Marinduque, Eric Matining. Congratulations po, Sir Eric. Okay. Question number 3. Okay, pwede na po mag-encode. Okay, may nakakuha na ng tamang sagot. Ang tamang sagot ay annual audit report. So annual, yung audit, makita niyo naman po, sinusuri niyo yung mga dokumento at report, reporter. Okay. Okay, ang nakakuha po dito ay, parang I think grupo po ito, DLG, from DLG Region 12, yung Regional Assessment Team. Congratulations po. Hati-hati po kayong buong lahat members. Okay, ang question number 4. Okay, pwede na po mag-encode. Ay, ang bilis. Naka-ready yata. May nakakuha na agad ng tamang sagot. Ay, wala pa. Wala. Ayan. Ang tamang sagot po ay Emergency Response Team. Bakit team? Team YAP. O, di ba? So, emergency, dahil dun sa sirena, yung response, nakawakan ng sagot. So, sino nga ulit, secretariat? From DLG Camarines Sur, Kate Angelica Pasubilio. Congratulations po, ma'am. Very good. Nahulaan niya si Team YAP. Okay, question number 5. Okay, ready na po? Ay, tibag niyo ng sagutan to. Ay, may nakakuha ng tamang sagot. Oo. Ang tamang sagot po ay National Tax Allotment. So, ang may tamang sagot po ay from the LG Region 6, si Ma'am Sherry Narciso. Congratulations po, Ma'am Sherry. Ano te, hanggang ano, 10 items na lang.
Hanggang 5 p.m.
Ay, mamaya na lang ulit. Okay, so okay, mukhang ano, nabuhayan na po tayo ng dugo. So, na-note po namin yung mga nakakuha ng tamang sagot at wait na lang po kayo sa inyong mga pa-premyo. Ay, meron ba? Okay po, thank you po. Sana po ay nag-enjoy po kayo.
Nawala na ng chat box. Marlo.
Okay.
Thank you so much po. We hope po na kahit papano nakapag-refresh tayo before we proceed to the next presentation. And as promised po by Director Debbie, meron pong premyo yung mga nakakuha ng tamang sagot. Ma'am Debbie, 50 po itong mananalo.
Alam ko 20.
20 lang po, 20 lang po. 10 po yung ngayon, 10 po ulit mamaya. Thank you so much po. So, later po ulit tayo mag-icebreaker. Ngayon po, proceed muna po tayo sa continuation ng discussion ng ating mga governance areas, specifically indicators per area. And for the third assessment criteria, to present the indicators for the tourism, heritage development, culture, and the arts governance area, we will call on Division Chief Ramil S. Basuel from the Department of Tourism for the presentation. Good afternoon, Sir Ramil, and to our DOT colleagues.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me, Sir Kim? Okay lang?
Yes, sir. Malinaw po.
Okay. So, I'm from the Department of Tourism Office of Tourism Development Planning, Research, and Information Management, and I'm here to present to you the approved criteria for the 2023 Seal of Good Local Governance on tourism, heritage development, culture, and the arts. So the first step that I'm going to present to you is for tourism development. Next, please. Right. For the SGLG minimum requirement, we have four indicators, but we will only require at least two of the following. Number one, presence of local tourism officer or designated officer. Number two, the tourism information and assistance center or desk. Number three is the formulation of local tourism development plan. And number four would be the submission of annual supply tourism statistics report. Next, please. Okay. For the indicator number one, which all provinces, cities, and municipalities will have to come up with, they must have at least a filled up permanent position for local tourism officer, or if it's not a permanent position, a designated officer for tourism. Right. Okay, this is in according to the law, according to the Republic Act 95 1993, if tourism is significant in their locality, then they must have a permanent tourism officer. But since in the ground level, no, during our observations, our tours in most municipalities, cities, and provinces, almost all of these provinces, all of these LGUs have a designated tourism officer. So I think this is going to be easy for them to comply with. So the data source would be an executive order or an HR paper that says that they have a tourism officer or the appointment of local tourism officer. Right. Number two. Next, please. Okay, the second one, which is also according to the Tourism Act, According to the Tourism Act, if tourism is significant, there should be a tourism information or assistance center which will serve as one-stop information for visitors or tourists. Okay. So the indicator is the establishment of a tourism information and assistance center or desk. The data source would be photo documentation or an an actual tourist information assistance center, no, yung documentation doon, which is located in the province or in the city municipal hall. And then an ordinance or similar issuances creating the tourism information assistance center. Right. Um, for the SGLG, there has to be an existing local tourism assistance center or desk with, of course, materials like promotional materials, references, or tourist sites. Number three, then number three would be the formulation of local tourism development plan. According to Section 37, all LGUs are encouraged to prepare a local tourism development plan which integrates zoning, land use, infrastructure development, the national system. This is also aligned with the for Economic Cooperation and Development framework on tourism competitiveness, that to assure that there is sustainability and competitiveness in tourism development, there should be a tourism development plan. So a data source would be a documentation supporting the planning and formulation of the local tourism development plan. Now, for this year, the minimum requirement is only not an approved local tourism development plan, but the proof that the LGU are starting with their local tourism development plan. This is like an approved resolution or EO creating the committee that will formulate the tourism development plan or the technical working group, an approved work plan, or if they already have a draft local tourism development plan. Many of the LGUs already have even approved local tourism development plans. Okay. Number four. Okay. Number four is the submission of annual supply tourism statistics report. According to the Tourism Act, all LGUs shall provide an inventory of all the resources available to the department. So, for this year, ang hihingin lang natin is yung annual uh, supply data on tourism, no? So, supply tourism data. Um, Almost all LGUs have been capacitated with the DOT standard local tourism statistics system, which includes the template on supply database for accommodation establishments, the supply database for tourist attractions, and the supply database for other tourism enterprises. Now, there should be a documentation that this was submitted to the DOT regional office. Right. So these are the four indicators for tourism development, and the LGUs are only required to at least pass two of the indicators. Okay. So before I answer the questions on the chat board, let me continue with the other indicators for cultural heritage. Okay, for the cultural heritage promotion and conservation, there are four indicators that was used last year, and it's going to be used again. And then the minimum requirement is the LGU should comply with at least three of the following. Okay, so number one, let's continue with the ano na po, ano. So number one, please, number one would be yung presence of local council for the promotion of culture and the arts. This is covered by the DILG MC number 2017-133 that the LGU should create cultural should create a cultural committee, no, or the committee on culture and the arts, right? So the data source would be a Sangguniang resolution creating the council. Okay, so yun lang naman po yung atin pong requirement na document. Okay, the next indicator. Okay, the next indicator will be the approval and implementation of a budget appropriated or the conservation and preservation of cultural property. According to the Republic Act 10066, LGUs are encouraged to incorporate cultural property programs in their LGU budgets. But the appropriation, wala naman pong percentage na nilagay po. No? So dapat lang magkaroon lang ng appropriation on cultural heritage promotion and conservation. Okay, now the data source, okay, since the indicator is about implementing the budget, the data source would be the utilization data from the accounting office, the annual budget, and the annual investment program for the LGU. The minimum requirement would be at least 75% utilization rate of the budget appropriated for the conservation and preservation of cultural property for the year 2022. So, yun yung ano natin. Next indicator would be the existence of an updated cultural property inventory. This is covered not only by the RA but also with the DILG NCCA Joint Memorandum Circular 2021-001. There should be an inventory of all cultural properties in all LGUs. Yeah. Okay. The data source would be the cultural property inventory updated not earlier than 2022. Okay, using the templates prescribed by the Joint Memorandum Circular, and then an acknowledgement letter from NCCA. Okay. Then the list of LGUs with inventory submission from NCCA. This is going to be sourced out from, of course, NCCA. Okay, the SGLG minimum requirement. Okay, yung cultural inventory po natin, updated not earlier than 2022. Okay. Of course, parang ang ano natin diyan, hindi naman kasi nagbabago kadalasan yung atin pong cultural properties ano po. So kung meron na po kayong submitted and certified na cultural property inventory before 2021 or before 2020, what you just have to do is to certify ng LCE ninyo na yung inyo pong list, inyo pong inventory is the latest and there are no changes, no? So yun lang po yun. So adopted by the LGU, parang certified na siya. And then submitted to NCCA for review. This is in consideration, of course, with those that submitted last year pero wala pang response yung NCCA po. So kung wala pang response yung NCCA, magkaroon lang po tayo ng evidence that we have submitted it already to NCCA for consideration. Okay, last po is yung published narrative of history and culture. Kailangan meron po tayong publication on our history and culture, either research paper or meron tayong mga educational materials or mga books, no, or even sa mga websites natin, no. So yun lang naman yung kailangan natin. So kaya ang data source lang natin photo documentation lang, copies ng mga published narrative whether sa website lang siya, so print screen lang siya. And then proof of LGU acknowledging the narrative published by, if it's published by a third party po. Right. So ayun lang po. And again, for the cultural heritage promotion and conservation, 3 out of 4 lang po ang requirement for the SGLG. Right. So this has been the work of the technical working group of the DOT and the NCCA, NCIP, NHCP, NM, and with the help of ULAP and NAPC. Thank you. Now we can answer the question, sir.
Thank you so much, Sir Ramil, for the presentation of the performance indicators for the tourism heritage development, culture, and the arts governance area. And now let us proceed po with the questions and concerns raised by our focal persons po from different regional offices. And maybe seek guidance din po or additional information from the DOT regarding this po. Firstly po, regarding the overall processing for the tourism development, meron pong question from DILG La Union. May list po ba na ibibigay ulit regarding LGUs in which tourism is a significant industry? As agreed po during the TWG meeting, right, Sir Ramil, the indicators for tourism development will be applied to all LGUs na po for this year's implementation. Hence, a list will no longer be given. Any additional po dito, sir?
Yes, thank you, Sir Kim. Yung po kasing nasa batas natin with significant industry, we don't really apply it anymore here. So kinonsider na lang natin na pwedeng 2 out of 4. So yun yung naging ano no, naging palitan. That ang ano kasi natin doon, wala naman talaga kasing official list of LGUs that have significant tourism industry. DOT cannot do that for LGUs because it's only the LGUs that can really say that they have significant industry. For example po, we have experienced some provinces that by observation, kahit kayo po yung punta doon, alam nyo na significant yung tourism industry, but then their representative will tell you outright that tourism is not a significant industry in their province. So kung tutusin, ang pag-declare na significant yung industry sa isang lugar would be one, syempre nasa LGU po yun, no? So yun yung kaya po sa kahit sa mga national tourism development plans namin, we usually don't name any LGUs para po lahat po ay may chance na mag-develop themselves as a tourism destination.
So thank you, Sir Ramil, for this clarification. So again, to all focal persons po, for this year's assessment cycle, the indicators for tourism development will be applied to all LGUs, PCMs po, nationwide. But
Yes.
kung binigay po sa ating consideration, at least an LGU2 meet at least 2 of the 4 indicators under this area. Thank you so much po. Next.
Can I answer?
Sige sir, apo.
Sige po. Yes po, pwede pong ma-designate as tourism officer any casual employee or yung mga JO nila or COS, provided that these are designated now with executive orders, with mga ganun, as designated as tourism officers po. So pwede po yun. Now, kaya tinanggal din namin yung tungkol dun sa significant industry. Kasi kapag significant tourism industry, kailangan permanent yung tourism officer mo. But for this one, what we only require is that there is a designated tourism officer. Medyo magagalit nga yung mga kaibigan kong mga tourism officer to kasi they really wanted to put in the SGLG na permanent tourism officer so that para daw ma-push na maging permanent sila, no? Ayun lang kasi medyo hindi kasi yun nakalagay sa batas, so we cannot do that.
Thank you so much po, Sir Emil, for that clarification. So again po, sa nag-raise po ng question from DILG Region 3 regarding po sa designation ng mga COSJ or casual employee, pwede daw po ito according to the Department of Tourism. And we will update the technical notes accordingly.
Okay. Proceed ba tayo?
Proceed na po, sir. Regarding po,
yan. Sige po.
po, sir. Regarding po dito, sir, sa indicator 9.1.3, the approved local tourism development plan, meron pong question from DILG Region 6, specifically po Iloilo Province. For the tourism development plan, what is the coverage po? Should it cover CY 2023 already?
That's a good question po, no? I think since 2022 po yung atin pong yung kino-cover pa natin, kapag meron silang tourism development plan covering yung term nung last election, kung 3 terms yun, ay 3-year plan yun or 6-year plan yun last time, okay na po yun. No? So, kunwari, 2020 to 2022. So, ayun, pwede pa ho yan.
Okay po. Thank you, Sir Ramil. Additional question po regarding this indicator from DILG Batanes. Can we consider the tourism framework plan instead of the development plan? Also here in the province of Batanes, considering na maliit lang naman po yung probinsya namin and we only have 6 municipalities, considered na po kaya na pass itong indicator na to sa municipalities namin if meron ng nagawa provincial local government unit na tourism plan since MLGUs were involved naman when the plan was prepared.
That's a good question po, no? Kasi yeah, basta po ma-certify po certify naman po ng nung province po, no, na naka-incorporate yung plano ng bawat LGU doon sa provincial tourism development plan. This is good enough po, no? So yun yung ano natin. Wag lang po yung sa regional, no? So kasi sa region ang gagawa na is yung national agency. So hindi po kasama 'yon. So ang kasama lang po is yung sa province lang po. But they do have to certify the province have to certify, sir, no, na kasama talaga yung LGUs o yung mga plano ng LGUs doon sa ano natin, doon sa makikita talaga doon sa provincial.
Thank you, Sir Mil, for that clarification. Sir, regarding pa rin po sa indicator na to, meron pong question from DILG Region 11 if this tourism development plan po ay pwede na integrated siya sa comprehensive development plan ni LGU.
Yes. Yes po. Pwede po 'yan. Ganun din yung sa tourism framework po, no. The tourism framework plan, this can also be considered as the tourism development plan.
Thank you, Sir Ramil. And lastly po, also from Region 11 din po ito, ibang plan naman po siya, Tourism Master Plan. Consider din po ba ito?
Yes po. Ayan actually yung lumang tawag sa Tourism Development Plan. It's the Tourism Master Plan.
Okay. Thank you so much, Sir Ramil, for this clarification. Sir, talo na po tayo sa next indicator. Sa 9.1.4, the submission of the annual supply tourism stats report based po sa DOT standard format. Question po from region, from DILG NCR. For this indicator, when should the data be submitted to the DOTRO?
Right. So the DOTRO usually collects the supply data by April or May of 2022. They should have submitted by then, pero dahil nga supply data naman siya, if they have updates, they could just submit it to the regional office. Basta during that year po, no? So kasi ang Ang deadline naman po niyan would be yung siyempre yung December ng 2022. Basta na-submit lang po ng December 2020, last day of December 2022, okay naman po yan.
Okay, Sir Ramil, thank you so much po. Uh, there is a request po from the ALG R10, specifically po from ARD Yvette Sunga of the ALG Region 10. Can your DOT regional offices furnish our regional offices of the submitted report required?
Yes po, we will ask our regional offices to coordinate with the DILG with regards to this po.
Thank you po. And lastly po, for this indicator, question or request po from DILG Region 8, pwede raw po bang magbigay din ang DOT ng isang master list of LGUs who complied to this reporting requirement as
Yes
basis
po.
po ng compliance?
Yes po. I'm not sure kung may updated na for 2022 na dito sa central office, but definitely doon sa ating pong regional office, which most probably mas updated yung sa kanila, we will be providing guidance with to our regional office to do so.
Thank you so much, Sir Ramil. Um, Sir, punta na po tayo sa Cultural Heritage Promotion and Conservation. Question, sir, regarding po dun sa Council for the Promotion of Culture and the Arts. Question po from the ALG Region 12, clarification on the creation of this council. Sangguniang resolution po ba ang kailangan, EO or ordinance?
Well, according dun sa ano po natin, no, yung dun sa DILG po natin, it's really a sangguniang resolution po na ano natin. So dapat po may creation lang. Pero parang ang ano lang naman ang sabi ko nga doon sa minimum requirement natin, basta may existing namang cultural council po, no. So and may documentation on its creation, whether it was created by EO or sanggunian or a resolution or ordinance, that should be enough documentation. So the existence of one and then yung mga papers na ganyan, yun yung magsisimula, no? So I think any will do po, no? Kasi kung EO or resolution or ordinance, any of the three will do.
Thank you so much po, Sir Ramil, for this clarification. Next po, regarding cultural property inventory, another request po from Region 10 from ARD Tibet. Same with NCCA to give the DALG list of LGUs with inventory submission. Yes po, ARD, the Secretariat po, the SGLG National Working Team, will request this data po directly from the NCCA.
NCCA. Thank you, sir.
Another question po from Region 1, if this year or 2023 lang po nakapag-submit si LG ng updated cultural property inventory to the NCCA for review, considered na po ba ito?
Hindi. If we're going to be strict about it, mukhang hindi po. Kasi dapat po nung 2022 po nakapag-submit dapat nung 2022 nakapag-submit ng ano po ng atin pong inventory, since yung atin pong ini-evaluate for this SGLG is yung 2022 po. So hindi po 2023.
Okay, sir. Noted po. Thank you po. And lastly po, regarding pa rin po ito sa cultural property inventory, yung certificate of acceptance or yung email po ba ay okay na?
Yes po.
From NCCA upon submission of the property inventory?
This is for 2021 up po, no. Yun yung kinonsider natin. For those that submitted 2021 and 2022, the acknowledgement of NCCA of their submission or yung pag is accepted na po, no? Accepted. But for those that are showing an inventory, that was done before 2020, kailangan po ay meron po yung certificate. Yung certificate po natin, nakalagay po doon sa atin pong Joint Memorandum Circular. So kailangan po manggaling po sa NCCA yung certificate na yon, which they're saying na certified na po yung kanila pong cultural inventory po. And then if there are no changes to their inventory kahit na nung 2020 pa ito ginawa, or even ano pa no, mas matagal pa, or kahit na 2020 below, dapat po ay merong kahit man lang certificate from from the LC of the LGU that this is the updated inventory still being used by or adopted by the LGU.
Noted po, sir. Wait lang po, check lang po natin if meron po tayong naiwan questions. From DALG ni Maropa po, rejoinder lang daw po. Regarding po to sir submission ng tourism stats report, is the updating of the tour lista sufficient for this indicator po?
What? Ano po?
Tour lista. Pwede po nating i-ask ang
tour lista. Yeah. The tour lista is just the digitalization or the digitization of the SLTSS. So it's okay.
Thank you, sir.
Sagutin ko na rin siguro ito. Yung tungkol sa tanong ni Miss Kalinda Vidal, is it not updated every 2 years? What if kung 2020, hindi na po kailangang i-submit ng 2022. Wala po kaming sinasabing ganun po, no? Ang sabi namin, kung submit kayo ng 2021 tapos na-certify na po yun ng NCCA, that's okay na po yun. And then siguro ang kailangan na lang kung yun pa rin talaga yung ginagamit, magsulat lang, may certification lang from the mayor or provincial governor that this is the updated cultural inventory being used by the LGUs. So hindi kailangang mag-submit po sa NCCA po. Kasi ayan.
Thank you, sir. Any additional questions for clarifications? Very well po, check ko lang po yung ating documentation.
Again po, sa Region 5 po, wala pong list ng LGUs where tourism is their significant industry. There is no such list po. Okay, so wala pong maibibigay din ng regional office kasi ang policy po ng DOT is that all LGUs are capable of being developed as a tourism destination. So kaya hindi po namin policy na magbigay ng ganyan po na with significant yung tourism industry sa kanila po.
Thank you, sir. Parang may humahabol pa pong questions. Wait lang po. From DALG 4A, ang tourism spots po ba natin ay dapat registered sa DOT or okay na po ang accredited ni PPCAO? Ikaw.
There is no registration of tourism spots sa DOT. There's only a reporting of the supply data, which is of course includes the tourism spots. So wala pong ganun. So kung sakali lahat po ng LGUs talaga needs to submit this data.
Thank you, sir. Also from Region 2, sir, this is not a question, but we would like to extend the concerns of LGUs relative to the strengthening of tourisms in LGUs. They are requesting for capacity development interventions on the formulation of these plans, lalo na po yung katulad ng sinasabi po natin sa developing pa lang po sila ng kanilang tourism industry.
Thank you for that question. We are actually giving that regularly every year po sa mga nagre-request po ng mga LGU.
And lastly po, from Region may pumapasok na po pala. Pero from Region 6 po, from province of Antique, good afternoon. Senator Legarda facilitated the cultural mapping projects for all LGUs in our province in coordination with the DepEd. Once the list of all cultural properties are adopted by the respective sanggunians, can this suffice na raw po ba to pass the indicator? Mas extensive po kasi ang cultural mapping rather than just submitting an inventory. The project was in partnership with NCCA.
That's the same po, no? Baka hindi, naguguluhan lang po kayo. Cultural inventory is actually cultural mapping technically. So parehas lang po yun, no? So kung sakali man na nag-inventory ang isang LGU at parang mas maliit yung kanilang na-inventory nung nag-cultural inventory kaysa nung cultural mapping, ibig sabihin nun, may mali silang nagawa or mayroon silang hindi na naibigay na. Now, what we're following is uh, uh, the RA on National Heritage at saka yung pong JMC ng DILG at saka ng NCCA. So maganda na may nagawa na beforehand pa, no, with the help of DepEd. Ibig sabihin nun, mas madali po nilang mailipat ito doon sa standard template na nilagay doon sa joint memorandum circular between DILG and NCCA. Meron po kasing mga template na nilagay po doon para at least mas madali po yung pag aggregate ng data.
Okay, thank you, sir. Meron po pa tayong additional questions. Hello, sir. With regards to submission of cultural property inventory by the province, it is okay po ba nang isubmit nila is the cultural property inventory of their lower LGUs? So parang kabalikaran po ito ng tanong ko yun ng Batanes. Kasi si Batanes naman po yun ang tanong nila if pwede po nang isubmit ay...
Yes po. Parang ganun na nga po ang mangyayari po para sa mga provinces natin. Kailangan po nilang ang yung trabaho nila parang dalawang mangyayari niyan. Mas madali yung magiging trabaho ng provinces natin kung yung lahat po ng LGUs nila ay gumagawa nung work, gumagawa ng inventory po. So tama po yung sinasabi nila na isasubmit lang naman nila yung aggregated data ng lahat ng LGUs po nila when it comes to cultural inventory or even yung supply data po sa tourism po.
Okay, thank you, sir. Pero clarification lang po dito, sir, sa response natin regarding this. If meron pong cultural property na under ni provincial government, di po ba dapat mag-submit din sila ng separate
Yes.
cultural property inventory of their PLGU?
Yes po, madadagdag po 'yun sa kanila pong as properties kasi parang responsibility nila 'yan eh. Parang ganoon yung mangyayari po. Parang in addition to the properties listed by their LGUs, pwede pa rin silang mag-submit ng kanilang
Okay pa. Thank you so much po, Sir Ramil, for this clarifications. And yung mga na-mention po ngayon na clarifications regarding po sa these indicators will be updated or reflected to our technical notes accordingly naman po, sir.
Yes.
For the reference of our regional and provincial offices po, especially our regional assessment team na magkakandak po ng assessment sa ating mga LGUs.
Okay po.
Nagre-raise po ng hand si ARD Yvette Sunga from DALG Region 10. ARD, you are recognized po.
Thank you, Sir Kim. Sir Ramil, magandang hapon po. This is for BLGS and DOT. Since may commitment po kay Sir Ramil that the regional offices will be furnishing us with an updated list coming from their end. But for NCCA, ganun din po yung request natin, Sir Kim. If NCCA can furnish us a copy of those certified and those that submitted with no action per statement po ni Sir Ramil, they should give us already a list para easier for the assessment team. Thank you very much po. Secondary data na po yung treatment natin, please. Thank you.
Tama po, ma'am.
ARD, we will send formal communication with the NCCA to request for this data po. Thank you, ARD, for that recommendation. Any additional comments po from our participants? Okay, hearing and seeing none. I think we're all set na po sa ating mga indicators for this governance area, and lahat po ng ating na-discuss ay well documented naman po, and we will update the technical notes accordingly if meron po mga kailangang linawin pa doon or update for consultation to the Department of Tourism, our TWG head for this governance area. And with that, we would like to thank Sir Ramil as well from the Department of Tourism, and together with other DOT colleagues. Maraming salamat po, sir, for attending and presenting the governance area for the indicators for this governance area rather. Maraming salamat po, sir.
Thank you po. Thank you po.
Meron pong appeal dito, mag-icebreaker. Ulit. before we proceed to the last governance area for the day one of our orientation, kasi medyo mahaba po ito, yung ating pong discussion for the social protection and sensitivity governance area. 2:45 na po. Originally, ang ating pong schedule for the SP presentation is 3 to 5 p.m. So I think meron naman po tayong konting time to continue our icebreaker before we proceed. So let's welcome back our game master. Okay po, for a while lang po. Meantime po yung iba po, pwede naman po tayong mag-short break before we proceed to the next governance area. And we would like to acknowledge po the presence of Ms. Sylvia Alegre from the Department of Social Welfare and Development, our representative from the DSWD, who will discuss the indicators later po kapag nag-resume na po tayo ng ating discussion.
Okay. Kim, thank you po. Thank you po, Kim. Ay. Uy, ano, naka-share na? Ay. Ay, nakata na yung sagot. Hindi pa. Wait lang, ready na ba? May nakahula na po ba?
Wait lang, wala pang ba?
Wala pang excited ang mga tao. Dami pang energy, Pero dahil nga nahulaanan nila, pamigay na po ito. Meron pa naman po tayong practice lang po ito. Daming energy, Porket last na tayo area for today. Hindi kayo sure. Last. Ganun pa man. Sige po, ang tamang sagot po dito ay Certificate of Affirmation. O diba, yung off lotion. Witty. Okay, ready na? Wait lang po. Okay. Uy, guys, palista ha. Thank you po. Okay, next question. Okay. Ay, may sobra ng isang word doon kay Ay, may nakakuha ng tamang Sobra kasi siya. Ito lang. So ang nakukuha po ng tamang sagot, ang tamang sagot po dito ay safely manage drinking water. So safe kasi may shield. Yung sa gitna ay manager siya. Basta yun po yung nahanap po sa Google. So ang nanalo po ay si from DLG Lanao del Norte. Okay, congrats sir. Kung wala kong papalakpak na na sound, sorry po. Manual na lang po na palakpak mga sir at ma'am. Okay, next question. Okay, ready? Okay, ayan, pwede na po mag-type. May linya na. Ay, ganun no. Okay, ang nakuha ng tamang sagot ay early warning system from Region 9. Si Mame, si Mamean po din. Congratulations. Congratulations po, ma'am. O, di ba? Nahulaan nila yung early. Okay, number 9. Okay. Go, encode na po kayo. Ay, parang kulang. Ay, parang kulang pa din. Parang mayroong spelling. Sa taas, te. Kasi sabi ni Ramsey, hindi daw po natin i-allow yung acronym. Ay! Sorry po, Ma'am Carol. O, tama si Ma'am Carol. O, from Region 2, congratulations po, Ma'am Carol. Ang tamang sagot ay Climate Change Expenditure Tag. Okay. Number 10. Okay, go. Basura mo, tapon mo? Opo, tinatapon po namin ng tama. Okay, may nakakuha ng tamang sagot. From DLG Bacolod City. Hati-hati na lang po kayo mga maming sir sa ating Solid Waste Management Board. Okay, last na to kasi tiglilima lang tayo. Sa susunod na mga araw yung iba. So, ang last question, already na pala na-encode na yung linya. Ala, hindi pa. Oh, okay na. Tanggapin na natin yung mga Kala kasi babuhin natin yung rule natin. Tayo tumutupad sa rule. Karap. Tamang sagot. Oo. Sorry po, nahuli po yung linya namin. Pero ang nakukuha po ng tamang sagot at nakapaghintay doon sa ating signal ay from DLG Region 9, si Harvey Hope Tagong. Ang tamang sagot ay Performance Challenge Fund. So ayan po, I hope ay nagkaroon pa po kayo ng additional energy para po sa ating last area. Pwede na po ba ang lahat? Sana po ay nag-enjoy po kayo. Kasi meron pa po tayo days 2 and 3. Bye-bye po.
Thank you so much po for that for the continuation of our energizer, of our icebreaker. And nanood naman pong sekretary at lahat ng nanalo, nakakuha ng tamang sagot. And pa-wait na lang po ng premyo from Director Debitors. Nangako po si ma'am. So once again, thank you so much po to our presenter from the DOT. And at this point, for our third assessment criteria, to present, fourth na po pala to. Fourth and last assessment, governance assessment area for today, to discuss the indicators for social protection and sensitivity governance area. We have here Ms. Sylvia Alegre from the Department of Social Welfare and Development. Good morning, ma'am. Good afternoon, ma'am. Sorry po.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me po?
Yes po, loud and clear.
Okay. Thank you. Parang gusto ko mag-present ng kagaya ni Ken, pwede ba? Pero dahil formal-formalan lang tayo. Um, Sige, magpo-formal ako. So, good afternoon po sa lahat. May I present on behalf of our TWG Chair on Social Protection and Sensitivity, the SWD Undersecretary Adonis Sulit, the set of indicators for the governance area of social protection and sensitivity. Our TWG is composed of 11 national government agencies. And the objective of the area of SP and sensitivity is to assess the LGU's responsiveness to the needs and facilitate meaningful engagement with the vulnerable and marginalized sectors of society. Next po. Next. So for this year, we have a total of 20 indicators for assessment, 5 of which are new ones. In addition, there are also 3 indicators for profiling for possible inclusion next year. On the processing, we will apply all-in overall processing, which means that LGUs have to pass the 20 indicators for this area. However, there are specific processing per indicator, which you will see later on under the minimum requirements column. So the first indicator is the seal of Child-Friendly Local Governance Award for 2022. If you see the retained, if you see that the indicator is retained, this means that this was an indicator for last year's assessment and retained for this year's assessment. So the minimum requirement for the CFLGA is to be for the LGU to be an awardee. But consideration is given to a non-awardee provided that the LGU has at least 80% overall rating and at least 60% rating for each of the category in the CFLGA audit. So the categories are survival, development, protection, participation, and governance. Or another consideration can be given to an LGU if it is compliant with CFLGA indicators on plans for children, budget allocation and utilization for children's PPAs, and the local code for children. The data source will mainly be coming from the Council for the Welfare of Children. So these are the list of the SCFLG awardees. The ratings also for the CY 2022 audit, and the certification duly signed by the secretaries of the SWD and the ILG. Second indicator is on mechanisms on GAD. So this is still a retained indicator. And the minimum requirements for these are for provinces, cities, and municipalities. We are looking at six mechanisms, GAD mechanisms. These are as follows: the GAD focal point system in the LGU, the GAD database, the 2022 GAD accomplishment report, the updated GAD code of the LGU, and the 2022 and 2023 GAD plan and budget, which should have been reviewed by the ILG field office and found compliant in form and content per PCW DILG-DBM NEDA JMC number 2016-01. And then related to the GAD plan and budget, there should be at least 75% completion rate on PPAs or utilization rate of the 2022 GAD budget. So there is legal basis for all of these mechanisms. These are in the Magna Carta of Women. And then the data source on the GFPS or the God Focal Point System is an policy issuance, either executive order or a similar issuance on the creation, strengthening, and institutionalization of the LGU GFPS. And then on the GAD database, It can be printed, electronic, or online, or an information management system that can generate gender statistics, meaning you can generate the number of male and female beneficiaries, for example, of a program in the LGU. So there is sex disaggregated data. And then on the GAD accomplishment report, we will be requiring the CY 2022 accomplishment report, and then certification on GAD plan submission or the certified form 2E of the DILGFO, and then ordinance approving the GAD code, ordinance amending or revising the existing GAD code, and if the city or municipality localize the provincial GAD code, a resolution referring to the said localization. Or if there is a regional GAD code, like in the case of the BARM, then a resolution adopting the regional GAD code. So for CY 2022 and 2023 GAD plan and budget also. And the GAD funds utilization data through Certified Form 2A Accounting Office. Okay. There are some considerations on those mechanisms. So for the GAD code, consideration is for the new GAD code, it is adopted not earlier than 2016, or there is an existing code that has been amended or revised by a new ordinance enacted not earlier than 2016. So 2016 to 2022. Consideration may also be given to an LGU with an existing code that is adopted not earlier than CY 2011. Letter B, there is an old code that has been amended or revised by a new ordinance enacted not earlier than 2011. Or for component cities and municipalities, there is a localized provincial GAD code, provided it was enacted not earlier than 2011 by the originating sanggunian. And then for the GAD plan and budget, for the 2023 GAD plan and budget, consideration is given if it is at least submitted to the ILG for review, kahit hindi pa siya approved. So the third indicator next is on mechanisms for violence against women and children. For this, we have retained the three indicators last year. So for provinces, cities, and municipalities, we are looking for the following: unorganized LCAT VAUC. Second, 100% of barangays with VAU desks. This is for cities and municipalities only. And third, at least 85% of barangays with submitted reports for all quarters of 2022. Pero consideration is given if at least 85% of barangays have submitted reports in 2022, third and fourth quarters at least. The data source for this, for the LCAT VAUC, is an executive order, ordinance, or similar document creating the local council against trafficking and VAUC. And then for the VAUDES, the percentage of barangays of VAUDES, ito yung certified form 2J from the Social Welfare and Development Office. And then for the monitoring report, 2J also from the Social Welfare and Development Office. So you can see in the technical notes that these indicators are backed by legal basis. So from the Anti-Violence Against Children and against Women, Their Children Act, 9208, and other laws. So next year we will be looking at the Safe Spaces Act and the expanded anti-trafficking. Next, another indicator that is retained, but this time for provinces only, since for cities and municipalities, this is already subsumed under the SCF-LGA. For provinces, we will be looking for the local code for children, which must be updated not earlier than CY 2016, or the existing code has been amended or revised by a new ordinance enacted not earlier than 2016. Consideration may be given to an LGU with A, an existing code that is adopted not earlier than 2011, or there is an old code that has been amended or revised by an ordinance enacted not earlier than 2011. Ang data source dito is the ordinance approving the local code for children, or if it is revised or amended, same ordinance. In case the code for children is integrated in another code, there should be a copy of the said code or ordinance, which will serve as MOV. Next, the fifth indicator is on LGU efforts on early childhood care and development. This is still a retained indicator with minimal revisions. Um, So the basis for this is RA 10410 of 2013, which highlights the crucial role of LGUs in initiating programs of early childhood care and development. This sub-indicator intends to measure the extent of compliance of LGUs in utilizing the ECCDIS or information system to capture the children's profile as basis for recognizing efforts on local governance and improving service delivery standards, policies, and plans. So we have created an ECCDIS, and there are DSWD memo circular on the institutionalization of the ECCDIS. The minimum requirements for this for cities and municipalities are, are the following. Number one, encoding of ECCD child profiles of 80% of all enrolled children in child development centers. These are the daycare centers in the ECCDIS. So this is for school year 2021 to 2022. The school year ran from September 2021 to June 2022. So encoding is open until March 31, 2023. For this year, we will no longer be accepting change request forms since this is an old indicator, so to say. And then part of the LGU efforts on early childhood care and development also is the supplementary feeding program. So what we are looking for now is 100% accomplishment rate in the implementation of the supplementary feeding program cycle 11 as of March 31, 2023. We are looking at the DSWD supplementary feeding program, not the LGU funded supplementary feeding program. For the DSWD SFP, these are the funds downloaded to LGUs for procurement of materials for the feeding program. Or another mode is our field offices procure the materials and give them and provide them to LGUs. Okay. The data source for this is from the DSWD, the ECCDIS report on the child profile encoding or uploading per LGU nationwide. And then likewise, the report on the supplementary feeding program implementation cycle 11 per LGU from our DSWD Bureau. And then from the DSWD field office, a terminal report on the supplementary feeding program, which reflects the nutritional status of children. Next. The sixth indicator is the compliance with accessibility law or Batas Pambansa bilang 344. Last year, if you will remember, we were looking for about 3 minimum requirements, but this year the TWG recommended to focus on an important facility of the LGU, which is the health center of the LGU. So the minimum requirement for this, for provinces, cities, and municipalities, is that at least all facilities of primary LGU health centers, so not all LGU health facilities, but the primary LGU health facility should comply with at least 7 of the 15 requirements. First, the stairs. Second, walkways. third, corridors. Fourth, the doors. Fifth, washrooms and toilets. Sixth, the ramps. Seventh, parking areas. Eight, switches, controls, or buzzers. Eight, handrails. 10th, fourth floor finishes. 11, drinking or water fountains. 12, public telephone. 13, seating accommodations. 14, signages. And 15, if there is an elevator in the health facility. So 7 out of the 15. And then there are very specific measurements that can be read in your technical notes. The data source would be photo documentation and information in certified Form G of the engineering office, and then additional photo documentation from the certified Form 2E DILG field office, and actual inspection of the features. Okay, next. Next, you will see the consideration. If the LGU was not able to comply with the minimum requirements of at least the 7 minimum requirements in the 15 fixtures are required, the LGU can submit a plan to be implemented within the next 3 years for the compliance with the minimum requirements, which are not yet fully complied with. So if this will be the case, it will be considered a substantial compliance on the part of the LGU. The letter can be complied with this year in the assessment period. Seventh indicator is the functionality of the PDAO, or Persons with Disabilities Affairs Office. This is a retained indicator with proposed upgrade. For cities and first to third class municipalities, the PDAO is established with an ordinance and a permanent PDAO head whose appointment has undergone the prescribed recruitment process. And then for fourth to sixth class municipalities, there should be a designation of a permanent plantilla focal person performing the functions of the PDAO. Plus, additional requirement for cities and municipalities, accomplishment report of PWD-related PPAs with at least 50% budget utilization versus the allocation. And then letter B, all currently issued IDs 100% uploaded in the DOH Philippine Registry for Persons with Disability. This is an information system which serves as basis for the implementation and the mandatory PhilHealth coverage for persons with disabilities. The data source for this, for the PDAO, is an ordinance creating the PDAO, and or as an executive order or similar issuance appointing the PDAO head or focal person. Another data source for the IDs is the PRPWD generated report on the PWDs issued with ID, and then the PDAO 2021 accomplishment report. They should be 2022, right? And then the PDAO Citizens Charter indicating mechanism for the issuance of persons with disability ID. Next, this is a new indicator. The eighth indicator is sign language interpreter in every LGU. The minimum requirement, this is only for highly urbanized cities, is for the city to have at least one sign language interpreter. Considerations will be given if there is at least one LGU staff trained in basic sign language assigned in the PDAO, or pwede rin the presence of an LGU budget for hiring sign language interpreter. Why did we include this indicator? Because there is a legal basis for this, which is the RA 11106, or the Filipino Sign Language Act, which mandates that all national agencies, including government-owned or controlled corporations and LGUs, are directed to use Filipino Sign Language as the medium of official communication in all public transactions involving the deaf. So qualified FSL interpreters and accessible materials shall be provided whenever necessary po, or requested during fora, conferences, meetings, cultural events, etc., conducted by government agencies and GOCCs. So that's the rationale. Next indicator, this is an old indicator, is the established senior citizen center. This is still backed by RA 7876 or the Senior Citizens Act, which mandates that there should be an established senior citizen center in every city and municipality. The center serves as a venue for the enjoyment and benefit of the senior citizen sector. So, iba po ito sa residential care facility. Excuse me. This is also mentioned in the IRR of RA 9994, which defines a senior citizen center as a place with recreational, educational, health. Ala, inubo na ako. Wait lang. Okay po. Kaya pa. The data source for this is photo documentation and information in the DILG form. The minimum requirement for cities and municipalities is to have at least one senior citizen center, either as LGU-owned facility or managed. So pwede siyang co-managed with the SWD, another LGU, or a private organization. Next. Tapusin ko lang po muna yung mga indicators natin. Okay, halfway, the 10th indicator is the Indigenous Peoples Mandatory Representation or IPMR in the Sanggunian. This is mandated by IPRA and then there is also the DILG Memo Circular 2010-119, DILG NCIP JMC Series of 2011, and NCIP Administrative Order Number 1, Series of 2021 to back this indicator. The minimum requirements for provinces, cities, and municipalities whose IPMR has certificate of affirmation and all of the following requirements are met. IPMR is seated in the Sanggunian, that's the first. And then the IPMR receives compensation and other regular benefits of a Sanggunian member. And third, the IPMR attends meetings or sessions as indicated in the minutes of meeting. Consideration may be given to an LGU with extenuating circumstances subject to the SGLG deliberation. The data sources for this are the following: NCIP list of LGUs with COA, and then COA certificate of affirmation is received by the IPMR, and then at least one payroll in 2022 and 2022, and then minutes of meeting in 2022, and list of LGUs with certificate of affirmation. Naulit lang, sorry. From NCIP. In case COA has already expired, an NCIP Regional Office Certificate of Holdover Authority. 11th indicator, in the sub-area of decent shelter for all and low-cost housing, the indicator here is absence of illegal dwelling units or LGU efforts to address informal settlements. So this is for cities only. This is an old indicator also. So for cities, the minimum requirement is there should be no illegal dwelling units or syempre kung meron pa rin, at least 70% accomplishment of the CY 2022 targets in the approved city shelter plan or resettlement PPAs contained in the annual investment plan. Consideration may be given to a city with an office, task force, or board of similar entity, or there is an approved local shelter plan, or there is an ordinance prohibiting illegal settlements and supporting relocation and or integration of informal settlers. The data sources are the following: status of accomplishment report on housing projects for the 2022 target as indicated in the plan, or resettlement PPAs contained in the 2022 AIP from the certified Form 2H from the Planning and Development Office. And then certification of LPDC, Local Planning and Development Coordinator, on the presence of informal settlers and efforts against informal settlements, from the Certified Form 2H Planning and Development Office, resolution adopting the city shelter plan, ordinance, EO, or similar issuance, creating a housing office or task force or board for the control, prevention, or removal of illegal dwelling units, as well as lead in the implementation of the housing or human settlements project, and ordinance prohibiting illegal settlements relocation and or integration of informal settlements. 12th indicator, next, is the utilization of funds for the following marginalized sectors. Funds for programs and projects for senior citizens and persons with disability. And second, 1% of the total ERA for the local council for the protection of children. So these are retained indicators. And the um, relevance or the relevant mandate for this, the General Appropriations Act mandates governments, agencies to allocate funds for programs and projects related to senior citizens and persons with disability. Likewise, Republic 7277 or the Magna Carta for persons with disabilities mandates the provision of assistive devices for persons with disabilities. And on the LCPC, RA 9344 or the Juvenile Justice and Welfare Act provides that 1% of the ERA of barangays, municipalities, and cities should be allocated for the programs of the local council for the protection of children. Our minimum requirements for this, for cities, for provinces, cities, and municipalities, all should have at least 75% completion rate on PPAs, or kung hindi man na-complete ng 75%, utilization rate of the funds allocated for programs and projects for senior citizens and persons with disabilities. And an additional minimum requirement for cities is the 1% ERA allocation for the LCPC. The data sources are the following: the approved LGU annual plan and budget, and the report on your fund utilization signed by the local accountant, report on PPA completion signed by the PDC, or the certified form 2A from the accounting office. The cut-off date for this is December 31, 2022. 13th indicator is the DSWD accredited LGU managed residential care facility for vulnerable sectors. So this is a retained indicator from last year. The relevance of this is that there is a need to have residential care facilities for some very vulnerable sectors. When we say RCF, it refers to a center or institution that provides residential care service to the poor, vulnerable, and disadvantaged individuals of families in crisis. Appropriate interventions are geared towards the healing, recovery, and reintegration of residents to family and community. But we are looking for accreditation, which is a recognition that the residential care facility met minimum standards set by the government within a particular period. So accreditation measures the capability of the LGU to advance the welfare and well-being of vulnerable sectors, with the provision of care facilities such as Bahay Pag-asa or youth group homes, and other similar entities pursuant to laws like RA 106, 10630, 9710, 7277, 9994, and 7432. Ang minimum requirement natin, this is just for provinces and highly urbanized cities. They should have at least one accredited LGU managed center-based residential care facility for vulnerable sectors. Consideration is given to an LGU that has a standing partnership with an entity. It can be a DSWD field office or a private social welfare and development authority uh, managing a DSWD accredited residential care facility as substantiated by AMOA, detailing institutional arrangements of the two parties, and a proof of transfer of residents to a partner DSWD FO managed facility. Ang mga data sources po nito are detailed There should be the list of residential care facilities accredited by the SWD. So this will be coming from us. Accreditation of the facility also coming from the DSWD central office. So in case the partner facility is managed by a DSWD field office, we will be looking for accreditation issued by the SWD Standards Bureau and proof of transfer of residence. And then in case the partner facility is the private social welfare and development agency, there should still be accreditation of the facility issued by the DSWD Standards Bureau and a MOA between the LGU and partner organization managing the facility. Next, 14th indicator is on the intervention for children, families, and indigenous peoples in street situations. This indicator is applicable for cities only. So as we know, the government has many commitments, international man or national, to build a protective and caring environment for children. So in the Philippines, the issue of street children and families continue to be a concern. That's why there have been several laws and also several DSWD issuances on the protection of street children. So street children refers to children who stay most of the time on the streets. So 4 hours and above and in public places and are engaged in varied types of activities other than earning a living. Pwedeng doon sila tumatambay, naglalaro 4 hours and above and other activities that they may undertake. And interventions may be in the form of street interventions. So an LGU personnel go to the street to interact with children and provide them services. There can also be center services or family interventions, which is mostly preventive for families at risk. And then, so the SGLG minimum requirement for cities is just a local issuance on the provision of services for children, families, and IPs in street situations following the SWD standards and rights-based approaches. So we will provide the relevant the SWD administrative orders on this, and the data sources will be the ordinance, resolution, on the provision of services for children, families, and IPs in street situations, reflecting the SWD standards and rights-based approaches. And we will be working on this that a certification will come from the chair of the Regional Council on the Welfare of Children, that the policies in accordance with the SWD standards and rights-based approaches, but we would need a copy of the LGU policies issued on that. So when we say child rights approach, there should be a mention that the child is respected as a rights holder and the decision are often made with the child. This is this is the this is what we advocate to be used in the LGU instead of a welfare approach whereby it involves the rescue of children perceived to be an object or victim from the street, and whereby decisions are made for the child without serious consideration for his or her views. And there is also a repressive approach, which we don't want the LGU to institutionalize through a local issuance, whereby the child is perceived to be delinquent. And so there is punitive action um, even in the issuance of policies. Okay, next. 15th indicator is the functionality of the local social welfare and development office. We recognize that the local social welfare and development office plays an indispensable role in ensuring quality social services for the vulnerable sectors. So Section 16 of the RA 9344 or the Juvenile Justice System and Welfare Act, Rule 14 of the IRR of 9344, and the Juvenile Justice and Welfare Council Resolution Number 2 Series of 2004 state that each LGU must appoint a duly licensed social worker as local social welfare and development officer who shall be tasked to assist children at risk and children in conflict with the law. The local social welfare and development office also performs case management for their clients, which is a specific process to plan, seek, advocate for, and monitor services from different social services on behalf of a client. Um, RA 97-160 also provides that the LSWDO shall identify the basic needs of the needy, the disadvantaged and impoverished, and develop appropriate measures to alleviate their problems and improve their living conditions. Wow, so with this many functions and roles of the LSWDO, we want to strengthen them through the following minimum requirements. So for cities, provinces, cities, and municipalities, they must have an appointed permanent status and CSC as attested provincial, city, or municipal social welfare and development officer who is also a licensed and registered social worker. Second, there should be a manual of operations or local guidelines on a case management system. And additional for cities and municipalities, the use of CBMS as a registry to update the profiles of current beneficiaries of social development programs. And fourth, all public social workers should be provided with a Magna Carta. Magna Carta for public social workers grant benefits. Next slide, please. The Magna Carta for public social workers benefits that we are looking for, there are 5, but the minimum requirement is 2. So the hazard pay should be mandatory, plus any one of the remaining 4 benefits stated in the technical note. On the consideration for the permanent social worker. So there is consideration if the LSWD officer is vacated sometime in 2022 or later due to retirement, resignation, or death of incumbent, provided there is a designated OIC who is also a registered social worker. An exemption is that in the case where the head of office was hired prior to enactment of RA 9433 or the Magna Carta for social workers in 2007, there must be at least a registered social worker working as a technical staff in the office. And consideration for CBMS will be given to LGUs with ongoing CBMS efforts and activities. So, kung nagsasurvey pa lang sa CBMS, pwede na din po. Next. 16th indicator. LGU efforts on mainstreaming SP. The minimum requirement is ano indicator. We are looking this year for the presence of a social protection development report or the SPDR from provinces, cities, and municipalities. Ang consideration dito sa SPDR, it may be formulated from or between 2019 to 2022. The SPDR is a report that contains the risks and vulnerabilities of an LGU. And this can be gathered from the Family Risk Vulnerability Assessment Survey or secondary data from the LGU, as long as the risk and vulnerabilities of the population are identified and recommendations are reflected in the report. We have a guideline on this, and we have been providing technical assistance to LGUs since 2015 on mainstreaming social protection through the use of the Social Protection Handbook and the crafting or development of the social protection development report. Next, institutionalization of the PESO, Public Employment Service Office. So this is with proposed upgrades. We had this last year, and there are upgrades from DOLE. For the minimum requirements, the minimum salary grade requirements should be in compliance with CSCMC number 20 series of 2019. So it says that for provinces, um, it should be at least salary grade 24 or assistant department head level. The peso manager. For cities, for special cities which are in Manila, which are Manila and Quezon City, it should be at least salary grade 25 or assistant department head. For highly urbanized cities, it should be at least salary grade 24 or assistant department head. And then for component cities, at least salary grade 23 or assistant department head. This has a legal basis because the PESO Act of 1999 mandates the establishment of free employment facilitation services in every province, city, and municipality. So aside from the need to comply with the law and the CSE qualification standards, the minimum requirements for the salary grade level of the LGU's PESO manager is intended to cover the heavy workload that is assigned to the PESO, especially that the PESO conducts daily referral and placement activities, career development support, labor market collection and dissemination, networking activities, and management of particular DOLE employment facilitation and assistance programs. What we are looking for as data source for this is just an ordinance institutionalizing the Public Employment Service Office and appointment or designation of the PESO manager. For municipalities, may susunod pang slide. For municipalities within Metro Manila, at least salary grade 23 or assistant department head. And then outside Metro Manila for first to third income class municipalities, at least salary grade 19 or senior labor and employment officer. And outside Metro Manila for fourth to sixth income class municipalities, at least salary grade 16, labor and employment officer 3. So, parang kinonsider na din yung uh, income capability of the LGUs for the municipalities, for the lower level municipalities on this. On indicator number 18, this is divided into 18A and 18B. These are on the functionality of the local development council. For 18A, the indicator is the functional local development council. We are looking for structures and economic plans and policies. This is a retained indicator from 2022. The minimum requirements is for provinces, cities, and municipalities to comply with all the tests of functionality. So these are the composition um, as provided by the local government code meetings. There should be two meetings for both semesters in 2022, an executive committee, a local project development committee, approved PDP-FP and CDP, LDIP and AIP, and a secretariat. So if the consideration is, if it's currently under review, the consideration for PDP-FP as indicated in the disaster preparedness area will be applied. In your technical notes, the specifics of what will be measured or what should be found in the functionality of the LDC are specified na. And then the data sources are the following. EO or resolution creating the LDC with names of the member CSOs and official representatives. Minutes of meeting of the LDC for 2022. Executive order creating the executive committee. And then executive order on the local project development committee. And then socioeconomic plans and policies. There should also be Sangguniang resolution approving the CDP, list of provinces with approved PDP-FP from NEDA, Sangguniang resolution approving LDIP, and also on the AIP. Di ko na po iisa-isahin yung description kung anong functionality. Pero next slide. Next slide po. Naka-detail po pala siya sa next slide. So, aside from the composition, there is the meeting, there is the executive committee. Sa next slide, naka-detail pa yung anong hahanapin sa cities and municipalities, which are the Sangguniang's Chairman Appropriations Committee, League of Barangays President, and a representative from NGO sectors who are in the council. And for provinces, representative of component city and municipal mayors chosen from among themselves, Sangguniang's Chairperson Appropriation Committee, Provincial League of Barangays President, Provincial League of Barangay President, and a representative from the NGO sectors who are in the council. And then as mentioned, approved PDP, FP, CDP, LDIP, and AIP. And then for provinces, PDP, FP, mga specifications na ito. So, no need na to explain. Can we go to the 18B, which is the satisfactory participation of CSOs in the LDC. So, Section 107 of the Local Government Code provides for the inclusion of the NGO or CSO representatives in the Local Development Council and are to constitute not less than 1/4 of the council. The objective is to ensure and maximize the cooperation of more sectors in the local development planning. The exemption for the 1/4 composition is if the LGU does not have a sufficient number of organized and accredited civil society organizations. The minimum requirement, which is applicable for provinces, cities, and municipalities, the CSO participation should be demonstrated in first, attendance to meetings held at least once in a semester for 2022, and second, inputs from the CSO or actual participation of CSO rep as captured in the minutes of meeting, or at least one CSO action plan submitted in 2022. The data sources for this, EO or resolution creating the LDC with names of member CSOs and official representatives. And then second, list of organized and accredited CSOs. Next, LDC minutes of meeting, CSO plan of action, if any, documentation or workshops on project prioritization conducted in 2022, post-activity report, if any, and project monitoring report, if any. Next, we are down to the last two indicators, 19th indicator. The sub-area is on strengthening population services. This is a new indicator, which is the establishment of population office with appointed or designated population officer. This is provided for by the local government code, which enjoins provinces and cities to establish their local population office and appoint a population officer who shall take charge of the office and formulate measures, develop plans and strategies, and provide technical assistance and support in carrying out measures to ensure the delivery of basic services and provision of adequate facilities relative to population development and the promotion of responsible parenthood. This is supported further by the ILG Memo Circular 2019-100, which provides guidance for all LGUs in the implementation of key strategies at the local level towards intensified implementation of the National Program on Population and Family Planning through the designation of local population officers or coordinators. So the minimum requirement is the following. For provinces, cities, and municipalities, presence of a local population office. And second, appointed or designated local population officer or coordinator. And the data sources are the following. So, monitoring form to from from the DILG, no? And then from the BLGD, Policy Compliance Monitoring Report, because per MCDILG MC 2019-100, they are the monitoring arm on the population office. And then appointment or designation document of the local population officer or coordinator. Last, an indicator. Setting up of a teen center, community or school base. So, pwedeng nasa community siya or pwedeng sa loob siya ng school. The setting up of functional and sustainable teen centers in every city and municipality. But for this year, we are looking at the first to third class municipalities as well as the cities. So hindi pa included ang fourth to sixth class municipalities. This is one of the strategies. The Teen Center is one of the strategies under PAPCOM's Adolescent Health and Development Program, the overall goal of which is to contribute to prevent early and repeated pregnancy, because we know that teenage pregnancy is already a national concern as provided through an EO by the previous administration. So we have the following characteristics of an adolescent-friendly teen center. May effective leadership and management siya. Nasa technical notes po yan. There are also physical characteristics indicated in the technical notes, community and stakeholder support and ownership, comprehensive and appropriate package of health and socioeconomic services and information, service providers and other teen centers, staff skills and competencies, and equity and non-discrimination sa services provided. So, ang minimum requirement is just the presence of a teen center. Ang data source niya is the PubCom report and the DILG certified form 2A photo doc, which is the photo documentation, policy issuance also for the creation and establishment of a teen center. And then, syempre hindi lang naman siya, as much as possible, we should also look at, hindi siya white elephant, so hindi lang siya presence, but it's kind of functional and serving its function. So we would like to look at the AIP if it's there for the operation of the teen center. So those are the 20 indicators for this year's assessment. We also have 3 indicators for profiling for possible inclusion in the next SGLG. And the 3 indicators are the following. Comprehensive local juvenile intervention program. The minimum requirement will be an approved comprehensive barangay juvenile intervention program. And second, for profiling is the ADS DPP or the Ancestral Domain Sustainable Development and Protection Plan, and its integration or integration of the whole or components therein in the local development plan of the LGU. And then third is the support to or adoption of the Pantawid Pamilyang Pilipino by the LGU. So we will be looking for the policy on this, budget allocation and programs for current and graduated or exited yung mga graduate na beneficiaries. So those are the indicators for profiling. Thank you very much for your time. And I see that the chat box has fired up. Over to you.
Thank you so much po, Ms. Sylvia from the Department of Social Welfare and Development for the presentation of the indicators for social protection and sensitivity area. Now, ma'am, we request po na mag-stay muna po sa ating Zoom para po masagot natin yung mga concerns and other issues po na na-raise ng ating mga regional focal persons. To start with po, for a while lang. To start with regards to indicator 3.2 on GAD mechanisms, meron pong question ang DILG Makati if in the GAD code there is a composition of the GAD council members roles and functions, and also got DWG members, will this be considered an indicator for the institutionalization of GFPs or GFPS?
I guess it will fall under a consideration if the offices are specified. But in a separate policy for the GFPS, we are also looking at the roles and functions of the GFPS. So that should also be in the guideline, not just the offices, specific offices that will serve as GFPS members.
Okay, thank you, Miss Cecilia. Any additional clarification po regarding this? Or siguro pabalikan na lang natin later if po raise yung nag-raise po nito from the ILG Makati. Pero well noted po yung inyong response. Next po, for indicator 3.5, CD, information generation and sharing from DILG Quezon City, what if the LGU did not access the supplementary feeding program fund from the DSWD because the LGU provides for such allocation? Will it be taken against the LGU?
Ah, can I ask my colleague, Jello, can you answer that?
Hello, good afternoon. Can you hear me po?
Yes po, sir.
Yeah, okay. On the case po of the LGUs na wala pong allocation of fund coming from the DSWD, they are automatically exempted po, no? For that indicator. Since ang minimeasure po natin is yung allocation of fund coming from the DSWD. So I hope na clear po yung concern from QC, LGU.
Okay po. Well noted, sir. Thank you so much po for this clarification. Next po, regarding pa rin po sa 3.5, question from DILG Region 7. Can we ask for an NGA list of supplemental feeding funds downloaded to LGUs and their level of compliance or liquidation?
Yes, we can provide that.
Okay,
Region,
thank you
ano
so
yun,
much.
sir? Region?
Region 7 po. Thank you, Ms. Sylvia, for the response. Next, from DILG Eastern Samar, is there a not applicable option for indicator 5 with regards to the supplementary feeding program implementation cycle? 11. Some LGUs are implementing cycle 12, not cycle 11.
They are already on. Can you answer that, Jen? Because we are assessing 2021 to 2022. So for cycle 12, they are not yet done with the cycle 12, right? Tama, Jello. Ongoing pa yung cycle 12.
Yeah, Miss Sylvia, that's correct po.
So they cannot enroll cycle 12 yet.
As far as I know, there are funds na advance po yan na binaba for the region down to the LGU. So they are actually implementing cycle 12 naman na po. But for the SGLG 2023, we are subjecting for assessment the cycle 11. That's the focus of assessment for our SGLG 2023.
Thank you, sir, for this clarification. And from DILG Region 8, may consideration po ba sa encoding sa ECCDIS or extension sa period of encoding? May we hear from the DSWD po?
Or as mentioned earlier, there will be no longer a consideration for this year since we opened it until March 21, March 20, 31. 2023 for the LGUs to encode everything. So um my change my window of opportunity pa from between April 1 to April I think this week to reconcile with the ECCDIS and the LGU in terms of targeting. So yun lang po yung ano, and then there will be no change request form that will be accepted. Since ang time po ng implementation or encoding in the ECCDIS is until March 31. Ikaw, Jello, may additional ano?
Hello, to add in po, for the information of our colleagues from the LG, we are not sure to what the deadline is actually the extension of the extension. Since the original deadline is actually June last year, and it was extended until August, and the last extension is ito nga po yung March 31 natin.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir and Cecilia, for this clarification. Next po, uh, with regards to the 3.6A compliance with accessibility law in LG building from Region 12 in reference to the IRR, ano lang po ito, suggestion na to kindly rearrange the numbering of the minimum requirements. Yes, sir, the Secretariat for in coordination with the TWG will rearrange accordingly po.
Okay, thank you for
Technical
that.
notes and SGLG materials po. And we will also put or upload the IRR in our reference materials folder. Same with 3.6P, these are questions po specifically dun sa mga maximum and minimum, sa mga minimum requirements po natin when it comes to washroom, toilets, etc. A copy of the IRR po will also be included in the reference materials for the guidance of our LGUs and regional assessment teams.
Monday na, isang linggo na, ano ngayon? Alam mo, Merkulis, Monday ka pa rin.
Parawa lang po.
Yan. Anong tawag doon pag
Ayan, pasensya na po. Okay, moving forward, from DILG R6, regarding pa rin po ito sa 3.6B, compliance with accessibility law in at least one main health facility. On compliance with this indicator, does this cover all health facilities of the LGU, or compliance will just be for one primary health facility only? Thank you. Correct us po ni Silvia, pero tama po ano, for CY 2023, one primary health facility will be considered.
Yes po.
Okay po.
That's
Sige po. Okay po, moving forward. From ALG R12, understanding that at least 7 only must be complied, still the problem will be the drinking fountain and public telephone. So, public telephone. Will there be an alternative on this? Since as defined by the IRR, public telephone is coin operated, the same with fountain na dapat may sprout.
On the public telephone, ang minimin pa yata ng batas na yan since the law is an old law, yung wall mounted, di ba? Pero currently landline na as long as it's accessible, whether cellphone ba yan or landline na nandyan sa table, as long as it's accessible to the persons with disability, there should be consideration for that. The primary consideration is accessibility. On the water fountain, ano ba yan? Hindi yata siya makukuha sa all of the requirements. But we will flag this concern to baka naman pwedeng may consideration sa may water dispenser sa health facility. that is provided for clients. So ganun na lang siguro. But we will forward this concern to the NCDA
So,
and reflect in the technical notes in the final, no?
okay po. Noted po, Ms. Sylvia. The Secretariat will note na lang po ito sa ating documentation. Next po, from the ALG IGAO, for the accessibility law compliance on submission of the implementation plan for the next 3 years, do we have a template? And what is the cutoff date of the approval?
There is no template yet, but what we want to see is if you have, for example, just complied with 5 requirements, so there are still 15 requirements, di ba? Or 14. So there are still 11 requirements to be complied with. The LGU should make a plan that would reflect in 3 years how would they plan to install those fixtures slowly. So kunyari sa next year ano yung install mong features, and then 2025 and then 2026. So, wala pang template, but we can provide that template if you want.
Okay po. Thank you, Ms. Sylvia. From DILG CAR, clarification po as indicated on the SGLG minimum requirement is all facilities of primary LGU health centers should comply with at least 7 requirements.
Just one facility po,
Apa.
primary.
Na-raise na po
So
pala.
kung RHU, opo. Kung anong facility yung gusto ninyo na sa tingin ninyo nakaka-comply naman ng marami-rami.
Okay po. Moving forward, Ms. Sylvia, to 3.7, functionality of DAO. Question from R8 is the consideration on PDAO establishment through an EO applicable also to cities and first to third class municipalities where used is eligible kasi not a city or municipality. Correct us na lang po, Ms. Sylvia, if mali. Pero right po, the considerations for PDAO office and head or focal person in CY 2022 will still be used for this year.
Yes.
Apa. So this is also our answer po to the query of Region 5 regarding sa query niya sa salary grade ng appointed PDAO officer for city and municipality. For 3.8, sign language interpreter, dapat po ba ang LGU may plantilla position ng sign language interpreter?
Not necessarily po. Kasi as provided by law naman, sabi niya, as necessary daw yung pag-provide ng sign language interpreter. So, pwedeng, yun yung ideal, di ba? Merong plantilla position if the LGU can afford it. But it's not necessary. So, pwedeng designation lang siya. Or pwedeng ang LGU would send one LGU staff to be trained in basic sign language and then assign him or her as a interpreter. Or there is a budget for hiring an external sign language interpreter. So outsourcing can be done also. As long as may data means of verification ka that the LGU has done this in compliance with the law.
Okay po. Thank you, Ms. Sylvia. And next po for indicator 3.12, separate budget for case for senior citizens, PWDs, and LCPC. Ma'am, may we ask if we will consider those LGUs that attribute their senior citizen and PWDs funds to LSWDO's budget?
Wait lang, hinahanap ko yung sa 70 budget accomplishment lang naman yun, no? Budget utilization versus allocation, yung ba yun?
Yes po. Iko-consider po ba natin yung LGUs na inattribute yung kanilang SC and PWD funds to the LSWDO budget?
As long as there is clarity kung paano na nagamit ba talaga yon sa senior citizens. in the accomplishment report. Nagamit ba talaga yung budget? Because we cannot just be sweeping na attributed yan dahil LSWDO fund yan. Pero dapat may clear, di ba sa accomplishment report naman, anong mga programs yung nirun mo for senior citizens. So, kung may attribution, dapat may clarity din on how much is attributed or what is attributed. Malinaw ba yun?
Yes po. Thank you po, Ms. Sylvia, for that clarification. As long as malinaw po yung pagkaka-state law attribution po will be is allowed. So, considered po. From Region 12, may we clarify po bakit magkaiba ang minimum requirements na presented in Indicator 12? Sir, this is a typo error lang po. The minimum requirements used in